what I wanted to do today was talk a bit about what actually sparks attraction in an interaction. And I think it's quite an important thing to talk about because I've been training a lot of guys recently, watching a lot of different guys of different backgrounds and calibers and abilities and so on and so forth going into interactions with women, and it seems to be pretty clear that the first few minutes of the interaction are just incredibly important. And if you can nail the first few minutes of the interaction, or the first or few seconds of the interaction, then you're on a much better path than if you don't, okay? And there's a danger really of veering into almost black pill territory here, because what are the fundamentals of a great first few seconds, a great first couple of minutes? Well, obviously to some degree, maybe to a large degree, it's kind of the way you look, unfortunately. And we've never said ever that looks don't matter, that looks aren't important. And yeah, I mean, the way that you look is really the first thing that she's going to notice about you. It may not be exactly the first thing. If you come from a distance, if you're walking into the bar or something, she might notice I guess we can lump in height with the way that you look, but she might notice something about the way you walk or your physicality or something. Again, really, which is part of looks. But let's just say looks is really the first thing that she's going to notice about you. Okay, so you've got to do everything that you can just to ensure that you look as good as possible. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? But that's such a key component. But really, I think what it comes down to is looks, yes, very important. It's also masculine presence, and this is an umbrella term. It's not a specific scientific formulation. It's just a kind of bucket for various concepts, which we'll go into in a second. So masculine presence, and then finally it's flirtatiousness. Okay, so you've got aesthetics, let's say, the way you look, you've got masculine presence, and you've got flirtatiousness. And if you can bring all of those things up to the highest heights that you possibly can, then it's likely that the first impression that you're making is going to be favourable or more favourable, and that's going to make everything much easier. Because now, the old school idea of dating advice was that you would, more or less, use your silver tongue to talk your way out of a mediocre to bad first impression. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. And in fact, it wasn't Casanova, but it was another one of those sort of guys who said something like, give me 10 minutes with a beautiful woman and I can talk away my ugly face. And what he meant by that was, I'm not necessarily that attractive, but I can talk away that first impression just using my amazing witty repartee or Oscar Wildean banter or whatever. And it is possible to do that. And that's why we sometimes encourage students to remain in interactions for a little bit longer. If the very first sort of feedback that she gives you is not so favourable, sometimes it's worth keeping going for a little while, just maybe saying a few more things, asking a couple of more questions or whatever, just keeping the conversation going slightly longer. Because what can happen is that the woman that you're interested in will start to warm to you, and she'll start to realise, oh, okay, actually this guy, he's confident, he's got something about him, and that can pay dividends in your favour. But in general, if that first impression is messed up, you're on a sticky wicket. On the opposite side of the spectrum, if the first impression is really good, a lot of the work is then done for you. Your verbals don't need to be so great, okay? You don't need to have all of this amazing repartee in order to sort of convert her to your way of thinking, if you like. So first impression, really, really key. And listen, the other thing is as well, we are interested here in creating visceral attraction, okay? This isn't about somehow trying to intellectualize it or cerebrally create interest in us. We want to evince that visceral, raw, gut level attraction, okay? And how do you do that? Well, sorry guys, but looks are very important, as we've said. Now, there's a limit to what you can do with some aspects of that, but there's also quite a lot that can be changed. There's also quite a lot that can be done. with your looks. You know, there are lots and lots of different procedures of various kinds that you can have, things like Botox, you could get a hair transplant. If you need one, you could, you know, get your skin sorted out, you could get exfoliation. I mean, there's just so many different things that you can do. Getting a decent haircut, you know, decent shaving equipment, all of these different things that you can do. Now, the looks max type people will complain and say, well, yeah, but you can't fundamentally alter your facial shape, and that may be true, although, you know, let's be honest, surgically there's also a lot of things you can do these days, but you can certainly do the very best that you can with what you've been given. And you know, we always have to play the hand that we've been given, right? And that's the case with your looks as it is with anything else. So look at the raw material, look at what needs improving, and then improve those things. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, as a sort of adjunct to that, you've also got the grooming side of things, you've got the fashion side of things, and you've got the fitness side of things, okay? And those three, obviously, enormously important. We're not going to go into them in huge detail in this video. In any case, I've talked about them plenty before, and millions of other YouTube channels talk about them probably better than I do. But you know, you need to get in shape. You need to be fit. At the very minimum, you need to not be fat, okay? Because unfortunately, you know, being overweight is going to be a detriment to you in the dating sphere. And you know, that sounds very harsh, but I was speaking to a woman just the other day, and I was saying, well, what do you like in guys? And she said, well, I don't like blonde guys, and I don't like guys who are fat. I was like, okay, fine, that's a little bit blunt, but I take your point. She was Eastern European, but nevertheless, you know, it's a harsh reality. So you want to stay in shape. You also want to groom yourself as well as you possibly can. That's, you know, getting the good haircut, using some decent hair products, grooming your beard if you've got one, shaving properly, you know, all of that kind of stuff. You know, you want to be well presented, okay? And then fashion. And fashion, of course, is another huge thing. I've done talks on fashion many times before for my private community and for John MLD, stuff that he's been doing. And the key thing really that it comes down to is fit. You know, you want to get clothes that fit well, all right? You also want to try to get clothes, particularly things like shirts or coats or suits. You want to kind of invest in some decent material, some decent tailoring, particularly things like the coats and the suits. You know, you want it to be well put together, so I'd advise against buying very cheap examples of those items, but things like t-shirts and stuff, it doesn't matter so much, but you want to make sure that the fit is there. I would say as well, if you're not a fashion expert, and let's be honest, most guys aren't, it's better to keep it simple, okay? Patterns, probably better to stay away from patterns for the most part, and keep it plain, you know, plain black, plain white, plain blue t-shirt, fitted plain blue t-shirt. You can't really go wrong, you know, fitted black t-shirt, can't really go wrong, okay? Suit jacket over the top of that, looks good, looks sharp, can't really go wrong, okay? Keep it classic, keep it simple, try to avoid too many frills if you possibly can, but fit is the ultimate thing, you know, try to keep it fitted, because that's going to make a big difference. And also as well, if you've been working out, it's going to show off your physique better, which is important. Okay, so that's all of the aesthetic stuff. What about the masculine presence? Well, when you go into an interaction with a woman that you are interested in a romantic way, you know, you've got to make your presence felt. It's not about being a loud-mouthed kind of buffoon and shouting over her or anything, but at the same time, you want to make an impression when you walk in. You don't want to be the guy with the really high-pitched, squeaky voice. You don't want to seem to be faltering. You want to squash any sort of perceived nervousness that you might be feeling. You know, you want to walk in there confident, calm, collected, as a guy who's in control of himself and in control of the situation. Now, obviously, not every woman that you meet is going to accept that frame, or she's not going to accept you in that frame, you know, and women will often test, so you might get some teasing thrown your way, you might get some testing thrown your way, and that's okay. You can't win them all, and as I say, testing is part and parcel of this, so that's fine, but the frame that you want to go in with is extremely confident and extremely in control of the situation, okay? Nothing phases you, all right? You are the oak tree, you are rooted to the spot. You're not flustered by the things that she says. You are solid and firm in your convictions, in your belief in yourself, in your strength, and in your control of yourself, right? You know, very, very important. So you want to bring that sort of energy, you want to bring that kind of grounded energy into the interaction, right? So that masculine presence is very important. And then finally, and this is a thing that a lot of guys find difficult, is flirtation, all right? You want to bring flirtation into the equation, all right? There's got to be an undercurrent of flirtation. There's got to be an undercurrent of sex somewhere in this interaction, even if it's very, very subtle, okay? It can be created by things that you say. You might refer to double entendres. You might, you know, make some little kind of hints about sexuality somewhere in the conversation. That's great. It could be through eye contact, strong, prolonged eye contact, not staring like a psycho, but, you know, for decent, strong, suggestive eye contact, very, very powerful. Little bits of touch, obviously not weird, creepy touch, of course. Disclaimer, guys, but, you know, you might want to touch her on the arm or something to emphasize a point that you're making it when you're in conversation. Proximity, you know, how close are you? Are you standing quite close to her? All of these things make a big difference. There needs to be that undertone to the conversation, because if you don't have that undertone to the conversation, then really all you've got is a nice conversation. You know, you don't have anything. It's a house of cards and it's going to collapse. All right, so if you can nail those three things and bring those three things into the initial approach, into that initial part of the interaction, then you're going to be in a better position than if you don't. Now, people will say, oh no, sod the other two, it's all about looks, or, you know, they might say, well, it's all about masculine presence, but most people are going to say it's all about looks. Well, not necessarily true, because even if you are incredibly good looking, and we've seen this over the last few weeks, you know, we've gone out with guys who are very good looking and actually quite well put together and everything as well, but they've gone in and they haven't had the masculine presence, and most commonly they haven't had the flirtatiousness, and that has allowed has meant rather that the interactions have fallen flat, and the woman has either not wanted to see him again, or maybe she's given him her phone number, but she's not been available, or declined the date request afterwards. Okay, so you want to have all those three things in line. Looks, yes, they're important, but at the same time, if you've got the looks but you don't have the other parts in place, then it's gonna fall a bit flat, right? For the most part, you can, and then, you know, maybe you can get away with it for a bit, but she's going to see through you, and she's going to want a guy who has more of those other elements to him. Okay, but yeah, basically you want to look good. You want to be in control of yourself and your masculine presence, and part of that is just making the approach in the first place, right? Because you're a guy who goes for what he wants. You're not going to kowtow to societal expectations or any of that kind of thing. You know, I mean, obviously you're doing everything in the right way. You know, you're not out to hurt anybody or to do anything that's wrong, but at the same time, you know, you're going to go for what you want within reason. You're going to go up to her, say, listen, I saw you, I think you look very attractive, I wanted to come and have a conversation, right? So you're going to do that in a very grounded, firm way, okay? You're not going to be flustered by whatever happens. You know, we were in an interaction the other day and some random passerby comes into the interaction. This happens quite a lot outside in the daytime. You know, you'll get some like crazy person coming up and trying to join the conversation or whatever. You've got to be unflustered by everything, all right? Whatever happens, you're not flustered. It doesn't touch you because you're firm in your own reality, okay? And then finally, you've got to bring that element of flirtatiousness to it, because if you don't, then, you know, that's why you get friend zoned, because you haven't brought that element to the conversation. It's fine to have lots of nice conversations, but if you want to move things forward, there's got to be a sexual flirtatious element to it, okay? Anyway, I hope all of that makes sense. I hope that's helpful to some people watching this. Just some observations from the last few days here in Poland and working with different clients, and just things we've observed and seen. If you need or would like to improve your own dating skills, then we are out in Poland for the next few weeks. We're going to be in Warsaw, and then we're going for 2 weeks, and then we're going to be in Gdansk in around mid-July. So, and Gdansk, by the way, is kind of like the Polish Ibiza, party town or party city. 3 cities, in fact, joined together on the coast. So that's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, come down, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and we can discuss availability. We've got a couple of spots left. We're not going to take too many people, but we do have a couple of spots left here and there. So yeah, drop me an email. Do hit subscribe to the channel, hit like, give me a comment underneath. It really helps to spread the word and bring more people in and to help more guys. And yeah, any thoughts on this, please comment below. I will see you again very soon. Bye bye.